Could it be? But me, your man, Louie T, here on this LouieTeeNetwork exclusive. Day after the carnage. Black Monday took place yesterday in the National Football League. And as always, teams made decisions on whether or not to retain head coaches, general managers, coordinators, etc. There's still a lot of decisions to be made. I don't think that we have seen the last of coaches fired this offseason. I think there are some teams in the postseason with coaches that if there aren't successes in the postseason, you could see changes coming. Buffalo with Sean McDermott, a great example. If they go one and done in the postseason after losing the division this year and the failures in the past, Sean McDermott could be out in Buffalo. Mike Tomlin probably is in the clear, but another first round exit, and maybe they're sick and tired of Mike Tomlin not getting it done. You know, so much is made of his streak, which is incredible, of no losing seasons. He's never had a losing season in his NFL career as head coach. I think that's now at 16 or 17 straight seasons, however long it's been. But he doesn't do anything when he gets to the playoffs. When's the last time the Steelers won a playoff game? So could he be on the outs? I thought that if they lost on Sunday night to Baltimore, he was going to be fired. They won. So we'll see if that win and another clinched berth in the postseason keeps Tomlin's streak alive in Pittsburgh. You know, the Rooneys are very loyal, maybe to a fault. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I wouldn't rule it out. Okay. And so there are other teams as well that are kind of in that same boat, same vein, that if they don't have some success, just making it to the postseason isn't good enough. And we'll see what happens with some of these coaches in the postseason. But let's talk about the guys who weren't as fortunate to make it out of Black Monday with their jobs still intact. We'll also talk about some survivors from Black Monday, people that we thought were definitely in the crosshairs that could have easily have lost their jobs, but they still remain employed and are going to get another opportunity in 2026 to make things right. But before we do that, we have to sort through the wreckage that was Black Monday. And I do want to throw this out as well. Not as interested in the coordinator situation right now, because that's going to sort itself out over time. You probably see some more teams move on from coordinators. Obviously, with new hires come new coordinators. So there's a lot to kind of unpack with the coordinator situation. But Dallas did, in fact, move on from their defensive coordinator this morning, Matt Eberflus. So that is just another caveat thrown into the Black Monday mix, if you will. But let's talk about the coaches and general managers who were not able to make it out of Black Monday with their jobs. So let's take a look at the carnage that ensued on Monday. And we start with the Arizona Cardinals moving on from head coach Jonathan Gannon. I'd be lying if I told you I was surprised by his firing, but I also wasn't expecting it. I thought that he'd get one more year in Arizona. Injuries obviously had a big factor in what happened in Arizona this year. Kyler Murray got hurt, and add the Cardinals to the long list of teams this year that were impacted greatly by injuries. There was a bit of a, controversy that I think started with Kyler Murray in particular about whether or not they actually wanted him to be their starting quarterback. Murray actually posted a tweet yesterday that showed support for Gannon, said he would go to war with him anytime. So clearly he was a fan of Jonathan Gannon's. But I talked about this with the Commanders and their head coach, Dan Quinn. And are you able to withstand a season in which you lose a bunch of games in a row? And if you remember, the Cardinals were one of the last teams to lose this season. The Cardinals started this season off 2-0. And they went to San Francisco and they had this hard-fought game, a bunch of field goals. They end up losing the game 18-16 for their first loss of the season. They were this close, literally this close from being 3-0. And who knows what happens to their season should they win that game against San Francisco. But they made a couple of mistakes and they end up losing the game 18-16. They fall to 2-1. San Francisco moves on to 3-0. And then the wheels kind of fall off of their season. They lose a bunch of games. They beat Dallas for their final win of the season on a Monday night, no less. And I think that was after maybe a 5 or 6 game losing streak before they beat Dallas on a Monday night to get their 3rd win of the season. And then they didn't win again the rest of the season. And you finish the season on like a 7 game losing streak, something along those lines. I think they were 3-7 after beating Dallas, either 3-6 or 3-7 after beating Dallas. And then they lost their final 7 games of the season to finish up 3-14. And it's just tough when you lose that many games in a row. And so Gannon is out as the Cardinals head coach. And we'll see what they decide to do with their next hire. A lot of questions surrounding Kyler Murray. Is he the quarterback of the future in Arizona or not? I would assume, because if you think about the Arizona Cardinals and what they've done, they've been kind of trying to figure out what's the right formula. You go back to, about 3 coaches ago, and you've got Steve Wilkes. That was a disaster, defensive-minded guy. Then you go out and you get Cliff Kingsbury, and that's an offensive-minded guy, and you pair him with Kyler Murray, and you think you've got something going. They do make the playoffs one season, but they get bounced, and then the next year doesn't go well, and Cliff Kingsbury gets fired. So then you bring in a defensive guy, Jonathan Gannon. After the Eagles won the Super Bowl, Gannon was a hot name. They go out and hire him, and they just haven't had the success. So they go now in a different direction. I wonder if they go back towards the offensive side of the football for their next head coach. I always look at NFL teams like the country that we live in with the party that they nominate to become the new president. It always feels like after 4 years of a Democrat, we got to have a Republican. After 4 years of a Republican, we got to have a Democrat, right? Like, it's always like, we got to try something different. And so it feels like the Cardinals are probably going to veer towards an offensive-minded guy to see if they can fix Kyler Murray, make him the guy in Arizona once again. Unlock Marvin Harrison Jr., who has been, I would say, pretty disappointing in his first 2 seasons in the league. They had 2,000-yard receivers this year, one a tight end, the other Michael Wilson. So it's not like they aren't having some success. It's just, it's not from the guys you drafted to do it, right? So my feeling is that they're going to go offensive side of the football, but you just never know. We'll see what they do in Arizona to replace Jonathan Gannon, who is out as their head coach. You go to the Raiders and Pete Carroll, and this to me is a no-brainer. Pete's old, man. As much as we love to talk about Pete Carroll and how young and vibrant he is for his age, and Pete is a young guy for his age. He looks great. He has energy and spunk. But Pete's old, man. There's no way to get around the fact that Pete is the oldest coach in the league by a mile, and he conducts himself as such. Pete's still kicking field goals down 17 points in the 4th quarter with 6 minutes to go in the ball game. Pete's punting the football down, 17 points with 6 minutes to go in the ball. He's still conducting himself like it's 2006. And the game has passed Pete Carroll by. Every coach on his staff is 70 years old. He's bringing back all these oldie but goodie players that you're like, he's still in the league? What is Jamal Adams doing on the football field? Pete's trying to revive careers out here. The NFL is no country for old men. And Pete is as old as it gets. And they didn't want him in the first place. Let's be honest. Tom Brady is calling the shots now in Vegas officially. He was pseudo calling the shots last year. They swung for the fences. No one wanted the Raiders' job last year, so they had to go get somebody to run the show last year. And they settled in on Pete Carroll because if nothing else, Pete was going to make them a respectable outfit. But the wins just didn't follow. And so they're going to try again this year. Tom Brady is going to try to use his influence to get somebody in there that they truly believe in. But they now actually have the resources to do it, I believe, because the Raiders have over $100 million in cap space. They've got the number 1 overall pick, so you can pick your quarterback. They've got some pieces, I believe. If you look at the foundation that they have set in Vegas, you think about their core players. It's a really good mix. You've got a star edge rusher in Max Crosby. I know he's a little disgruntled right now. He'll be fine. He's not going anywhere. You've got a star tight end in Brock Bowers. You've got a potential star running back in Ashton Genty. You've got a left tackle in Colton Miller if you can get him healthy. You have all of these pieces in Vegas that you feel really good about. You get a quarterback in there, you add a receiver or two in the offseason, and voila. This thing could turn around very quickly for the Vegas Raiders. So I think it is an attractive job this offseason, unlike last offseason where it didn't feel as attractive. You get to pick your quarterback. If you love any of these quarterbacks that are going to be in the draft this year, all you have to do is love one. With that kind of cap space, you could do some damage in Vegas. Pete Carroll out, and I think it's pretty safe to say Pete's coaching days are behind him. The guy that I feel like is most in line to jump right back into the coaching field is Kevin Stefanski. He was relieved of his duties by the Cleveland Browns on Monday. I actually thought he was going to get another shot in Cleveland. We're talking about a 2-time NFL head coach of the year with 2 different quarterback situations. Nothing's really been stable for him in Cleveland since he's gotten there. The one time you thought he had some stability with Baker Mayfield, that thing went south very quickly. But Stefanski has been a hell of a head coach. His situation has been less than ideal. The Deshaun Watson trade has been a massive failure. I honestly don't believe that Deshaun Watson ever fit what Kevin Stefanski wanted to do, and that trade was forced upon him. And so you look at everything that has been done, it really isn't his fault. It really is the general manager, Andrew Berry's fault. And the fact that he survived and Stefanski ended up getting the boot is the thing that is probably the most stunning that took place on Black Monday for me. But Stefanski is a guy that I think is going to land on his feet. He is a tremendous coach, if you ask me. Excellent offensive mind. I think he does a really good job of rallying the troops. And he can coach. He's an X's and O's guy. I'd be shocked if he doesn't come away with the job immediately. There are currently 6 vacancies in the NFL: Giants, Titans, Raiders, Cardinals, Browns. Of course, he won't be going back to Cleveland and Atlanta. I'll be shocked if he doesn't come away with one of those 5 jobs that is available, because he's that good of a coach to me. That's to me. So Kevin Stefanski is the guy that I thought got a raw deal, and I expect him to be back as a head coach next year. So you then get to Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot. That's a package deal in Atlanta. Both of them were relieved of their duties on Sunday night after the Falcons contest against the Carolina Panthers, or excuse me, against the New Orleans Saints. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought Raheem Morris was going to be safe. After winning 5 straight to end the season, to get to 8-9, I thought Raheem had saved his job. Or 4 straight, excuse me. Winning 4 straight to finish up the season, including a dramatic win over the Buccaneers on a Thursday night, a hard-fought victory over the Saints there in a game that had a lot of eyes on it. I thought Raheem had saved his job, but make no mistake about it, he deserved to be fired. He's a terrible head coach. I've said this numerous times. Not the biggest fan of Raheem Morris. His game management and his clock management are among the worst in the league. He seems to be clueless at every turn as to what to do, from throwing the challenge flag to when to call a timeout. He always seems like he's overmatched. That said, he's a smart guy, very likable. I expect him to land on his feet as a coordinator somewhere. He'll be on someone's staff, even if it's not in a coordinator position. They'll make up a position for him. Assistant head coach and special assistant to the head coach, some bullshit like that. He'll be on somebody's staff if he doesn't get a coordinator job, but he's not head coaching material. I don't believe that's what he's made to be in this league. GM Terry Fontenot is, to me, a casualty of just never having a quarterback situation that was stable. If they ever figured out the quarterback position, I think Terry Fontenot would still have a job. But the problem is they never had a plan in place. And Terry gets the blame for this because I told them, and even though he didn't work out in the league, and he still might have been in this same spot, they didn't need to draft Kyle Pitts. They should have drafted Justin Fields or one of those quarterbacks that were left in that draft. Fields would have been the pick, hometown kid, a succession plan. Fields was not ready to start right away. You still have Matt Ryan. I don't give a shit if Matt Ryan was going to be disappointed. You draft Justin Fields, you sit him behind Matt Ryan for a year, and then you would have had your succession plan in place. They instead decided to draft Matt Ryan some help at that stage of his career with Kyle Pitts, only to get rid of Matt Ryan the next year and kind of be in the abyss. And they've never really recovered from that situation. They thought Kirk Cousins was going to be the answer. He hasn't been. They drafted Michael Penix Jr. He injured himself again. So Fontenot, I think, is a byproduct of just never being able to establish anything at the quarterback position, which I feel like another general manager who got away should have been in this same boat, because he's never really established anything at the quarterback position since Andrew Luck retired. We'll get to him in a bit, but this is the wreckage from yesterday. Keep in mind the Titans and Giants both fired head coaches during the season. So when you combine that with the 4 vacancies that opened up over the last 48 hours, there's 6 total jobs available in the NFL. As I mentioned already, Giants, Titans, Falcons, Browns, Raiders, Cardinals. And there are 2 general manager jobs available. Dolphins fired Chris Grier during the season. And we just talked about GM Terry Fontenot being fired in Atlanta. And so thought there would be more GM firings, and deservedly so. But surprisingly, guys survived, and that's where we head to next. The survivors from Black Monday, because there were other guys that we thought could easily have ended up on the chopping block. Some names not here that are notable. Todd Bowles didn't make the playoffs this year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I didn't put him on this list because the man's made the playoffs every single year he's been in Tampa, and he's won the division. They've had home playoff games basically every single year. Now, you could argue, like I've talked about with Mike Tomlin, that when they get to the playoffs, they don't really do much, but he's won a Super Bowl. Well, he didn't win a Super Bowl. He was the defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl. But I digress. They make it every year. They win the division just about every year. This is his first time not winning the division. I find it hard to believe you fire a guy for the first time not winning the division in 5 years, but basically. So I don't think he deserved to be fired, and I don't think he's going to be fired. He was at the press conference, the end of the season press conference for Tampa Bay yesterday, so it feels like he's going to stick around. But you could argue, if you're a Bucs fan, I know a lot of Bucs fans who are sick of Todd Bowles and want him gone. And I also get that sentiment as well. Another name that isn't up here that you could argue is Aaron Glenn. They were so bad this year. They didn't force a single interception, the first time that's happened in NFL history. They knew what that situation was going to be when he took the job. And so you can't fire a guy knowing that the situation is a dumpster fire when you hire him. I mean, they signed Justin Fields for God's sake and made him their starting quarterback. Like, he was set up to fail in his first season. Now, he's going to have to be better next year. They're in a position to draft a quarterback. They've got a ton of draft capital. They got to figure it out in New York, right? Obviously with the Jets, but make no mistake about it, he deserved to be back for a second year, okay? So those are a couple of names that you don't see listed here that survived that I don't really think needed to be put on this list. But let's talk about some guys that easily could have been on the outs but are still employed by their current teams. We start with head coach Mike McDaniel. There was a lot of scuttlebutt during the season as to whether or not he would be retained. We were told about 6 weeks ago that he was pretty much safe. Then there was a report about 2 or 3 weeks ago that said, hey, hold on, there are conflicting reports about whether Mike McDaniel will be retained in Miami. We've gotten to Tuesday, and Mike McDaniel feels like he's safe. They fired Chris Grier, as I talked about already, in season. Mike McDaniel remains. So it feels like he's going to get another shot. And I think that's the right thing to do. He's another guy that I feel like is a byproduct of a quarterback situation that is less than ideal. Again, sometimes it's a gift and a curse when you have success. If Tua never went to the playoffs, I don't think they give him the contract extension, and Mike McDaniel might not be in this position. But Tua made it to the playoffs. They scored a bunch of points that year, and they gave Tua the contract extension, and now you're stuck. And it's a tough situation because Mike McDaniel is one of the best offensive minds in football, but he can't win with Tua. He's a bottleneck quarterback. And in this league, your quarterback is the bottleneck, right? You're only as successful as your quarterback will allow you to be unless you've got an elite team around said quarterback. And even still, your quarterback has to make plays, and Tua is just not capable. And so I think they recognize that in Miami. They're going to try and get him something at the quarterback position. Tua's talking about he wants a fresh start. I don't know how you get that because your contract is such that it hampers and hamstrings the Dolphins. It's a crazy situation. McDaniel has been retained for now. We'll see if that ends up being the case or not. Feels like he's not going anywhere. But they got to give him a quarterback, or we'll be talking about this same conversation midway through next season, right? Head coach Zach Taylor. I don't know what to make of Zach Taylor. I don't love him as a head coach. I never did. Even the year they made it to the Super Bowl, I thought he got away with some questionable decisions on that run. But Joe Burrow's injury situation has really hampered him, stifled him as a coach. And so I think he gets that pass again this year. But the fact that Joe Burrow hasn't made the playoffs, the Bengals haven't made the playoffs since the Super Bowl run of 2021, it feels like Zach Taylor's still living off of that. You didn't win the Super Bowl, my guy. You just went. So the fact that he's still employed, I've seen Super Bowl head coaches not survive what Zach Taylor has done since they went to the Super Bowl 4 years ago. I've seen Super Bowl winning coaches not survive 3 years after winning a Super Bowl. Tom Coughlin. Doug Peterson. How is this guy still employed? Are you kidding me? This is incredible. Zach Taylor still has his job. But it really is on brand for the Cincinnati Bengals. They really don't like to ruffle feathers. They don't like to rock the boat, and they're very frugal. Hey, he's still got money on the books. We're not paying him to sit on the couch or be somebody else's offensive coordinator. Are you kidding me? That's what the Bengals care about more than anything else. The bottom line. We're still paying this guy. Like, the Texans are paying like 6 coaches right now. The hell if the Bengals are doing that, okay? They're going to hold on to Zach Taylor. I'm assuming that his contract is running out here shortly. They just won't renew his contract, but they're not going to fire him, okay? Zach Taylor should absolutely be fired, but I understand the sentiment of Joe Burrow and him being injured and him getting injured again this season and Joe Burrow being injured last season and how that's, really brought any momentum Zach Taylor's trying to build to a screeching halt. But you got to find a way, man. Like, or you got to find somebody else. Either you piss or you get off the pot. Somehow they're allowing him to continue to be on the pot. That's crazy. John Harbaugh, I really felt like I didn't need to put him on this list, to be honest. Because I don't think he's getting fired. He's one of the best coaches, I believe, in the league. But again, this is that conversation about how many times are we going to give you an opportunity to finally win? Like, they've been to the AFC Championship one time in the Lamar Jackson era, despite having the #1 seed multiple times. They have had limited postseason success. They missed the postseason this year. And again, Lamar was injured, so you get a pass for that. If your kicker can make a kick, you're in the postseason and all bets are off. But I understand the conversation surrounding John Harbaugh, but he's too good of a coach to get rid of. Like, to me, it's hard to find really good head coaches in this league. And Harbaugh is one of them. And you don't get rid of a guy like Harbaugh. He's had some tough luck, some unfortunate breaks that have happened to him, like the one on Sunday night in the postseason. Guys dropping balls, fumbling, things of that nature as they're going into the end zone. He's had some crazy shit happen. You just got to keep going and hope that the ball finally bounces his way one of these times and they get over the hump. But to me, the Harbaugh-Jackson pairing is one that can win you a Super Bowl. So I think he deserves another shot in Baltimore, but I think he needs to find some stability at the defensive coordinator spot. Losing Mike McDonald last year was tough, and their defense wasn't good this season. So they got to get better on that side of the ball. They got to find a pass rusher. Harbaugh isn't the issue, though, if you ask me. Shane Steichen. I am a massive Shane Steichen fan. So I am glad that he got an opportunity to come back this year. Now, much like I talked about with Jonathan Gannon, it's hard to overcome the amount of losses the Colts have suffered in a row. They were 7-1, if I'm not mistaken. 7-1, 7-2. If I'm not mistaken, the Colts were the last undefeated team in the NFL this season. If they weren't the last undefeated team, they had the best record through the first 8 weeks. To not make the playoffs, kind of a gut punch. That said, the Daniel Jones injury gives you a built-in excuse. I think they were going to end up the way that their season ended up anyway, even if Daniel Jones had stayed healthy. But keep in mind, when the downturn of their season hit, Daniel Jones was already nursing like some kind of lower extremity injury before the Achilles even went. He had already had an injury he was playing through. He wasn't as mobile as he had been earlier in the season when they had started off hot. And so you could tell he was being affected by the injury that he was playing through. And then it just finally all came crashing down. He finally, had the Achilles give out on them and their season gave out on them. Steichen is one of the best offensive minds in football. I think he's a really good coach. And I think you can win with Shane Steichen. I would love it if they found him a better quarterback situation, though. Like they're mulling over mulling the decision of bringing Daniel Jones back. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think that Anthony Richardson is the answer either. They got to figure that shit out, though. Like, if I were them, I'd really be scouring the free agent quarterback streets. I'd call up Arizona and see if Kyler Murray's available. I think Shane Steichen would do wonders with Kyler Murray. We know they've got tons of weapons. I don't know if they're going to bring back Alec Pierce or not. I think he's a big piece of what they've been doing. There's no better deep threat in the NFL than Alec Pierce right now. But they got so many weapons. You got to figure out the quarterback situation. And I don't think Daniel Jones is it. I don't think Anthony Richardson is it either. I don't know what you do. I don't know who you call. Maybe you call the Browns, and I mean, that Deshaun Watson contract is ridiculous. You're not doing that. If he were cheaper, I think Deshaun Watson, a healthy Deshaun Watson, a motivated Deshaun Watson would fit great in a Shane Steichen offense. But you got to figure out something. I don't think Daniel Jones is the answer, but Chris Ballard and the way he handles the quarterback position, he's probably going to do the easy thing, because I've always called him a coward when it comes to the quarterback position. He's been a coward for very many years. He's always gone the veteran quarterback route to avoid drafting a quarterback. And then he got threatened with his job, and so he finally drafted a quarterback, and he got it wrong with Anthony Richardson. So we saw them go through every veteran imaginable, from Phillip Rivers, I'm talking about the first time, to Matt Ryan, to Carson Wentz, everything they could do, everything they could think of to avoid drafting a quarterback because he was scared. Then he finally was threatened with his job, so he had to get a quarterback, and he drafts Anthony Richardson. We'll come back to Chris Ballard, but he should absolutely have been fired. But I get Indianapolis, their thought process, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Shane Steichen, I'm glad he kept his job. I'll just say that much. Andrew Berry, the general manager in Cleveland. How in the hell did Andrew Berry keep his job is beyond me. I mean, when you look at the list of these survivors, no one deserves to be fired more than Andrew Berry. I just told you why. You could argue that the trade for Deshaun Watson is the worst of this century. We've seen a lot of trades. A lot of them haven't worked. None has been worse than the Deshaun Watson trade. None has left a team in a more perilous state than the Deshaun Watson trade did. And remember, they knew Deshaun Watson's situation when they traded for him. They gave him a fully guaranteed contract, over $230 million. It has been an abject disaster, and it has sent them into a spiraling tizzy where they just fired a two-time NFL head coach of the year winning head coach because of it. He drafted two quarterbacks, neither of which look like they can play, in Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. Like, what the hell are the Browns doing anyway? Can somebody answer me that? What are they doing? Didn't they? Am I tripping, or did they trade for Kenny Pickett? Didn't the Browns trade for Kenny Pickett? Then they traded him to the Raiders. Like, what are the Browns doing? What is Andrew Berry doing? Why does he still have a job? Their receiver position is a mess. What is Andrew Berry doing still employed? It's the biggest enigma of the offseason. And the offseason for most teams just got started. whatever the case may be, Andrew Berry is somehow still employed, and I'm shocked. Chris Ballard is a GM that should have been fired 2 years ago. Should have been fired last year. I understand why they're retaining him this year because, unlike the Dolphins situation, I never like hanging on to a head coach with a new GM, because then you put that head coach in a really tough spot because that general manager didn't hire that head coach. And so at the first sign of trouble, that general manager is going to fire that head coach. And you never want to be looking over your shoulder as a head coach. So if the Colts decide to move on from Ballard, they're going to move on from Steichen too. It's going to be a package deal. I like what the Falcons did. If we're going to start over, let's start over from scratch, clean the slate, get a new GM. That GM then hires his head coach, and we go from there. So if that coach doesn't work, it's on that GM, right? We're not going to give any GM a pass when he comes in. Oh, that's not your coach. Let's go get you your own coach. No. So I understand why Ballard has been retained now, but he hired Steichen. He's hired like 3 coaches in his tenure. He's had like 90 different quarterbacks since Andrew Luck. If Steichen doesn't work out next year, both Steichen and Ballard will be fired. That's the way that it should be. But Ballard's not a bad GM in terms of evaluating talent. I've just said over and over again, he's a coward when it comes to drafting quarterbacks. And I don't think you should be rewarded for that in this league. So, and then he got it wrong with Anthony Richardson. So there's that as well. And then GM Joe Shane in New York. Look, if they were going to fire Joe Shane, they would have done it when they fired Brian Daboll. That's what it feels like. This is not a Giants roster void of talent. It's void of consistency. Whether it's the quarterback position, the offensive line, the secondary, whatever the case may be, they're void of consistency. Eventually, you run out of excuses and you got to fire the GM. But this is a team that I think is somewhat well put together. They have talent. Can they bring it all together with the right coach, and do they have the right quarterback in Jackson Dart? That's the $1 million question. If it turns out to be no, Joe Shane is fired. He's going to be fired. But this is what I hate. And I think the Giants have just screwed the pooch on this every step of the way. They should have gotten rid of Daboll last year. If you were going to draft a quarterback, you should have allowed your new coach to draft the quarterback. You let Daboll draft the quarterback. Clearly, he was infatuated with said quarterback. The quarterback became infatuated with said coach. Coach gets fired. Now you got to bring in a new coach and hope that he loves the quarterback that the last coach brought in. You got a GM that drafted said quarterback. He's going to be looking for a coach that loves said quarterback. And if this GM doesn't get it done and they decide to fire him next year, well, the guy that he hired is still here. The next GM is going to come in here and be like, this ain't my guy, but I'll give him a shot. But the leash is going to be short. And now it's a vicious cycle. I think the Giants are making a mistake, but it is their mistake to make. So these are your survivors from Black Monday. It's amazing seeing how things have turned out, and we'll see if there are more names to add to the list of the carnage. The postseason could bring some teams that are disappointed, and hence you see some more guys let go. But Let's get to the comment section real quick. Before we do that, we'll get a word from our sponsor, come back on the other side, get to the comment section, and then we'll get out of here. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips, play in fantasy leagues, and win real money on pick contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right. Big shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring this stream. If you're not on the Sleeper app, you're missing out on an opportunity to make some money. They've been hot here of late with the bonuses that they've been giving out on these boosts for these bets. Been crazy. 100%. Each of the last probably 10 days or so, you've had at least 100% boost in some sport. College basketball, college football, NFL, NBA. It's been 100%, 75%, 60%. They've been killing it. The link is in the description to download the app. Also use my promo code LTN to get you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. Tribal Warfare. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the support. Really do truly appreciate you. Happy New Year's to you and yours. And thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Really, truly do appreciate you, Tribal Warfare. Kevin the PRF. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Kevin the PRF, writes, so every year from here on out, when the last team gets an interception, does the 25 Jets pop champagne? Oh, that is a great question. I think it is the equivalent to when no, I can't think of how that saying goes. Like when a tree is chopped down in the forest, does anybody hear it or some shit like that? I don't remember how it goes, but I don't. This isn't a distinction you want, obviously, but it's one that you're probably going to have by yourself. I can't see another team not forcing an interception in a season, so I guess maybe some sparkling apple cider or something they could pop. You don't want to pop champagne, but maybe some apple cider. Maybe some apple cider. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Rhodey wants to know, why are you ducking him? He wants the smoke. I told you I don't want any smoke with Rhodey. We're good peoples, man. I'm kind of excited for the offseason. Interested to see how AP adapts to last year. I'm excited too. I'm excited, but I'm also interested to see what happens because I still don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to spend, how aggressive they're going to be. I expect them to be somewhat aggressive. I expect him to spend, and I want to see if he spends in the areas that I think are the best bang for your buck. But clearly, he understands that this team needs some young talent in the worst way right after a long day, and I think he's going to try to deliver on that this offseason. So I'm excited too. I mean, what's the alternative? Being, pessimistic and expecting the worst? Those days are over for me. I don't expect the worst anymore. We got 5. We got hope. We got a shot. And I think we got a really good general manager. I'm not sure about the head coach, but I do think we have a good general manager. So looking forward to seeing what he's able to do in his 3rd offseason as the Commanders' general manager. That said, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on This LouieTeeNetwork exclusive, the day after the carnage. Black Monday in the rearview mirror. I don't think we've seen the last head coach fired. I think there's going to be one more coach relieved of his duties. We'll see if that comes to fruition or not. Over the last couple of years, we've seen this process kind of drawn out, and you get a week removed from Black Monday, and then boom, somebody else gets canned. So I could see after someone's first round exit, one of these teams not being pleased with the trajectory of their franchise and them, getting rid of their head coach and looking to upgrade the position. So I would not be shocked if Buffalo somehow doesn't make it out of the wild card round. If they lose to Jacksonville, I could see Sean McDermott getting popped. If the Steelers once again lose in the first round, which is very likely, to the Houston Texans, I could see the Steelers saying, okay, Mike, we've had a hell of a run. It's been great, but we're going to go in a new direction. I don't think that's going to happen, but I could see that happening. Anyway, we'll see. And I think that those are the guys that I think could still be on the outs if things don't go well in the postseason, but I digress. You guys have a good one. Oh, got one more super chat. Kevin the PRF. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes Tribal Warfare super chat comment is just below his super chat. Okay, I was looking to see if he made a comment. I didn't see it, but I might have been just moving too fast. Yeah, I didn't see it. See his super chat. I don't see. Oh, here it is. Okay. Thank you for that. Tribal Warfare writes, sorry, LT, my message didn't go through. No problems. Sometimes it happens. My question was Candy rocking Eagles green nail polish while interviewing Louie? I didn't see if she was or not. She might have been. I'll have to go check it out to see if she was. I don't think that was by design if she was wearing, that color nail polish. She wasn't doing that intentionally. She just probably liked the color. Maybe green is her favorite color for all we know. I'll ask her. As a matter of fact, she's going to be on the program. She's supposed to be on the program one final time to wrap up the season tomorrow. So we can ask her tomorrow if that was in fact the case. So I'll be sure to ask her. And I'm pretty sure if she did, it wasn't to spite the Commanders or anything like that. So anyway, I digress. You guys have a good one. Take care. I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Yes, that's it. 3 E's. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? That's the one I was trying to think of. That's the one I was trying to think of. But I don't think the Jets are going to be popping any champagne. That's not a distinction you want, but I don't think anybody's going to break it either. It'll be like the 72 Dolphins.